Greetings brethren, Hausburger Donkey here with video 2 of my hill building tutorial, my old school hills. Quick word on tools, because I didn't do that in the first video. I used some very cheap carpet knives with disposable blades to do this. I have a really small fine one and a bigger one, which is just because they came like this in a double pack. They're not particularly good. You can also do this with an expensive carpet knife, you know, one that has a ratchet lock, but it's not really necessary. It's just cheapo, you know, styrofoam. Anyway, so I did show you last time that I had this sort of overhang over the plastic card at the bottom, and I just went along the whole edge using the plastic card as a guide and just cut the foam to basically the base of the plastic card, as you can see. And then the first step after that is to sort of start beveling the edge. And on the first pass, I use the big knife, and I just go for just a rough sort of, I don't know what this is, like a 70, 80-ish degree angle, something like that. I'll just show you. This might make a horrific sound because the styrofoam is glued in the middle, so I'm also cutting through glue. And this first cut is just really rough. We're not looking for anything final. We're just taking off sort of the first go, right? And I make sure that I don't go right up until the plastic card, that I leave a little bit of the styrofoam untouched. Because after that, what we can then do is start beveling the edge more finely, and I use the smaller knife for that. And we're aiming for something like this, right? It doesn't have to be super perfectly even, because in the next step we'll start evening it out a little bit more. But you do want the remaining bit on the bottom. Here's the original thing, because then you can also go along here with the smaller knife and just give it a much nicer sort of gradient, which kind of sells that old school look of because, you know, the old school hills that Games Workshop and a few other companies sold, obviously they weren't hand cut. They were just styrofoam that was basically cast in a mold, right? But it did have that sort of effect where it was rounded, then somewhat of a flat edge, and then rounded again. And if you do it this way, you can kind of sell that effect. Okay, and then once this is sort of a bit more smoother at the bottom, then we cut at a sharper angle the top bit of the foam. That doesn't have to be incredibly even either. It can be a bit shallower and a bit deeper in some areas, doesn't matter. And then you just keep cutting edges to make it round. And once you're done, you'll end up with something where about, if you look at it here, this is probably the deepest one I went, but here it's a bit more narrow. This is about 2 centimeters, I would say, or less, probably 1.5 at here, and this is more like 3 centimeters, where we took away the straight top. So there, you know, the edges are tough to balance stuff on, and we don't want those to be too deep. So this is actually like the deepest I'll go, but in the next couple of steps, I'll add probably some rocks here, and that will sort of even it out again, so that if I put a unit base on top, it can sort of balance on the rocks that are on the side, and just sort of extending the top flat layer. All right. Yeah, and you just keep going along the edges, making sure that it looks nice and rounded on the sides. This is a bit too thick. There we go. And anything like here where I just cut away too much of the styrofoam and we're beyond the edge of the plastic card, that's fine. You can either cut down the plastic card, or I'm probably just going to hide this in the next couple of steps, because there's a few more steps to come. All right, and that's it. And then you're left with your rounded hills, and I have a bunch more already done. As you can see, we got this one, and this one, and this one. These are all the tall hills, and then we have a few flatter ones that are just one layer of styrofoam. And what I forgot to say about these ones, they can be hill toppers. Let me show you. Take a smaller one, works better. So they can be a hill topper like this, just to, you know, to give it that aesthetic. Or I can also just use these as hills for War Master, because for a 10mm war game, they will easily block line of sight on this one layer. And yeah, they'll look fine as a War Master hill. Obviously, this can also be a War Master hill, but that's a big hill, right? So if you want some smaller hills for your smaller scale, then this is pretty great too. And I noticed I need to clean this up a bit more. But yeah, that's this step. And then in the next step, we'll start making this stuff tough, because right now it's still just super soft styrofoam. And if we just started putting basing material on top of this, it would rub and break off over time, and rather quickly. It wouldn't take too much abuse. So we want to make this as sturdy as possible. So I'll see you in that episode, hopefully tomorrow. All right, take care, guys.